Well, I'm so excited to team teach, and I'm also excited to celebrate Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the amazing moms. And really, I think mothers should be celebrated every single day of the year.
I agree.
Right? Motherhood is so rewarding, fulfilling, and joyful. And at the same time, it's frustrating, it's stressful, it's exhausting. It's like two worlds colliding at once. I like to say mothers are like superheroes.
Oh, yes, they are.
You know?
Superheroes
To handle this roller coaster of emotions of life. And
so are the husbands of the fathers to handle their emotions, their roller coaster.
Right. And there are many moments where I think that giving birth wasn't the most painful part of being a mom.
I don't know, but I would imagine it was quite painful, but other moments that are even more painful.
Right. So I saw some funny memes on social media that made me laugh, and I wanted to share the laughter with you.
I have I don't want to say banned you from social media, but I've encouraged you to read to just a little bit. But you're like, well, let me just look a little bit with Mother's Day coming up.
Yeah.
And you found some funny stuff.
Yeah, I found some funny ones that I want to share. First one is a note from a child to his mother. It says, "Mom, I just wanted to tell you that Mother's Day wouldn't be possible without me. I'll be waiting for my present in the living room."
Wait, did you find that on social media or did I write that to my mom?
I was going to say, that sounds like a note you would totally write to your mom. Another one, I love this one. "I let my kids follow their dreams unless they paid the registration fee on their last dream. Then they will follow that one for 6 to 8 more weeks."
Oh, come on. How many I know it's so expensive, all the activities and stuff. You're like, no, you need to
You're
finish
going to stay in that and finish it, right? Another one, "Been feeling a little moody and run down lately. Googled my symptoms to see what I might have. It's kids. I have kids. That's what I have." And this is my favorite. "That feeling a mom gets when another human genuinely sees how amazing her kid is and tells her." I mean, that's like the best moment ever. I think in that moment, all failures as a mom are non-existent.
You're ready to take the award.
I'm like, yes. So to all the moms, you are a daughter of the King of Kings. And no matter what you see when you look in the mirror or what your teenager may share with you on your parenting skills.
It can be brutal.
It can. You are...
Not the parenting, what the teenager says.
Exactly. You are a beautiful, brave, courageous, hardworking, resilient, selfless, loving mother. So don't give up. Keep pressing forward. Life is too short not to enjoy and embrace the beauty of who you are and the significant impact that you're having on your children or your child.
Even when you don't see it, because there are many seasons where you're like, I don't see it. You're having you're making a difference.
Absolutely. So today, we want you to discover your story is not over.
Say that again. Your story
is not over.
It's not over.
So right now, we're going to look at the story of the widow at Zarephath. And I love this story. God can use so many different people together, right?
Oh, yes.
So God uses two different people with two different life experiences to make a significant impact on each other. God will send you to places, open up doors of opportunities, and bring people into your life at just the right time. And sometimes it's the least likely.
It's the least likely. And you see, we live in a culture where sometimes we look at things and we're like, oh, they're not like me. We need to separate. Oh,
Yeah.
We have these differences, and so the differences cause us to divide.
Yep.
Whether it be political differences, people are dividing. Just all kinds of differences. We think, oh, we need to be people who are just like us. I have an announcement. I could not be hanging around and be married to someone just like me. She is so different than me in the best of ways. And you see, God brings people together.
Yep.
People who are different.
Yes.
People who might have a different past, People who have different personalities. We certainly have different personalities.
Yes.
People who have different strengths. You see, sometimes what you need is not more of the same. What you need is something different.
Yep.
And you may discover today that your destiny is going to be found in different.
It's so good. So we're going to look at 1 Kings 17, starting in verse 8. Then the Lord said to Elijah, "Go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you." Now, just to give a little context on what's going on in Elijah's life, Elijah was on the run from Israel after delivering bad news that there was going to be no dew or rain in the next few years. I get why Elijah was on the run. Who likes to deliver bad news?
I want to be the bearer of bad news.
I mean, especially to a whole country. I gotta say, I personally have a hard time delivering news if it isn't positive. Right? I think you know that.
Yes.
And I know the sandwich approach is not favored by many, but I have to say that if I'm going to deliver bad news, I like to couch bad news with a lot of good news.
It's the sandwich technique.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of sandwiches. Like, I love protein, so whatever goes inside the sandwich. But sometimes people just love, to eat a sandwich and it has so much bread. And you're like, there are times when Lindsay is communicating to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is there any meat on this sandwich?
I know. He's like, where's the meat? And
where's the beef?
Where's the beef? Where's the meat? There is way too much bread on this sandwich. But the reality is there's going to be bad news. And God asked Elijah to deliver the news. You can't run from what God is asking, regardless if it's uncomfortable, if it's difficult, if it's challenging. God asked Elijah to deliver. So God sent Elijah to hide by a brook east of the Jordan River. And ravens brought bread and meat every morning and every evening. I mean, that's like a perfect combo for us.
Oh.
I love bread. He loves meat.
So every day he got bread and he got meat. And so it's like, that is absolutely perfect for us because we're perfect. I mean, it's like, we like to share meals because if we go get burgers, she eats the buns.
Yeah.
I eat the burger.
Right.
It's perfect.
And on our honeymoon, no joke, every day for lunch, all I had was a basket of bread. Multiple baskets of bread.
Which was awesome because, sometimes at certain resorts, it can be expensive. And all she wanted was a free basket of bread.
Right.
I was like,
with some dipping sauce.
She is the best with some dipping sauce. The dipping sauce was free too.
I know, right?
I was like, oh my goodness, you're the best wife ever.
So, okay, let's look at this. Elijah then goes from living in the supernatural, receiving manna, to the natural, to a poor widow.
This is have you ever shifted in life where you're living in a supernatural time, where you're it's hard to explain, but God is just providing for you? A supernatural time where you have doors opening and you're I don't even know how this door opened up, or you end up meeting someone that ends up being a great contact, or even more than that, a great relationship. And God, everything is just working out. And then it's all that ends. And it's you're going from something where it's it's just happening. I'm laying by the brook. Oh, look at this. I get bread. I get meat. This is just awesome. Now it's wait, hold on. I'm going to a widow?
Right.
Sometimes we don't want to see change in our lives.
Yeah.
I can have allergies based upon the season, where I'll end up, getting a little stuffy or sneezing and, kind of get allergies. But some of us are allergic to change. We don't want change.
That's true.
We want things to stay the same. But the reality is when you're following God, you can't be change averse.
No.
It can be challenging. So maybe you're in a season of change in your career. Maybe you're in a season of change in your family situation. All the kids have grown up and they're now out of the house. Maybe you're in a season of change in some area and you're avoiding, or you're trying to be I don't want this change, but sometimes you need to lean into the change. Even if it seems oh, this is not going forwards. Is this going back? How is this going to work?
Right. That's so true. And In verse 10, it says, "So he went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks. And he asked her, 'Would you please bring me a little water in a cup?' As she was going to get it, he called to her, 'And bring me a bite of bread too.'"
Is that how I ever sound?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. No. Hey, can I have something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So back then, widows were usually among the neediest people in the land.
Oh, yeah, and the poorest. The most challenged.
And you could usually identify a widow by what they were wearing. So let's just think about this. Put yourself in this situation or look at it from an outsider's point of view. A random stranger walks up to this widow and asks for a cup of water and then says, "While you're at it, get me some bread too." And I'm wondering in that moment what that widow was thinking. Like, was she like, maybe, hold up, you don't know me. Clearly I'm a widow. I'm also a mother, and you have no idea what I'm going through. I think many of us can relate in that people don't know our situation or what we're going through. Maybe you're a single mom and not receiving support, or you're having a hard time just paying rent each month, or maybe buying groceries each month. And you're asking me to help you in my time of need? I find that so interesting.
Yes, it's like I'm just trying to survive.
Right? Exactly. The widow was barely, hanging on. I mean, she didn't have anything to eat and she was preparing to die.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that right now. They're like, I'm barely hanging on.
Yeah.
I'm barely, I used to live paycheck to paycheck, but now I'm just living day to day.
Right.
Or like, what is happening?
Just working hard to survive. And mothers may feel the same way too, just working hard to survive, maybe to not that extent, but just trying to survive each day with kids and schedules and all the demands of life being pulled in different directions here and there, and having teenagers, last minute plans.
You're like,
always.
We got math homework. Wait, hold on. Then we got to go to soccer practice. Wait, hold on. Then they want to do this.
It's like friends coming over, taken to school, and then after school hangs, and exactly you got to go to practice, and then you have cooking and cleaning and attending to your spouse. It's just a lot of demands.
You're like, wait, I'm doing all this, and now you're asking something of me? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. God doesn't ask something of you because you already have enough. Mm-hmm. I want you to get that. God is not asking something of you right now because he sees, you already have enough time. Mm-hmm. He's not asking something of you because, you already have enough resources. You already have enough money. God asks things of us to see, do we trust him?
I love that.
Enough.
So good. Well, maybe from Elijah's perspective, you have to look at that too. He had to have been humble, express humility to ask a poor widow for water and food. That's a big ask. I personally don't like to ask for help or have anybody pay anything.
You're like, I don't need anyone or anything.
It's hard for me.
It's hard. Like when we first started dating, you wanted to pay for everything.
Right.
You're like, you don't need to pay. Like you don't. It's like so many of us, we don't want someone else to do that.
No, totally. I look back and I was like, okay, when I was 15, I started working because I wanted to buy my own clothes and pay for after-school activities and be able to go out and do things. And then I waited until college to get my braces because I wanted to pay for it. And also, too, it's rewarding. And I didn't want to put that expense on my parents. And I'm thinking that had to have been hard for Elijah to ask a widow, a poor widow, for help. And during this time, food wasn't plentiful. The country was experiencing drought. And as parents, I think there are seasons and times that we go through when things aren't always plentiful. I remember growing up, every Sunday after church, our whole family and friends would go to Round Table Pizza and have lunch. And there were some Sundays that we couldn't go because my parents wanted to save money. And instead of going to Round Table Pizza, it's, hey, we're going to Judy's Kitchen.
Your mom's name is Judy's, going to Judy's Kitchen.
And as a kid, I just remember every time she said, like, no, we're going to Judy's Kitchen, it was like, no, it was like awful as a kid because I was like, you guys are so mean, missing out on all the fun, because the whole family get together. We'd have like a back room at Round Table Pizza. They knew us, so every Sunday they reserved it for us where the games would be playing, and then you got the arcade games in the front, and it was just like, wait, I can't go? I have to go home to Judy's Kitchen for leftovers? It was like, come on.
But as a kid, you don't really understand the challenges.
So you don't, and then another memory was in elementary, we would go school clothes shopping, and you get so excited to pick out your school clothes, and then we'd have to put it on layaway.
Well, you did on what?
Layaway. Where you would...
What is this?
You would put it on layaway, and then you would come back and get it a month later.
So, but I want you to know, the way my mom did it is, and I'm the oldest of the kids, but I got hand-me-downs from my older cousin. Mm-hmm. So my back-to-school shopping was whatever my older cousin sent down from Northern California. I'm not even joking. We're talking even... So I had hand-me-down. It was all used clothes, even used underwear. I was like, Mom,
come on.
I'm not even this. I love my mom. One of the best. You and her are the best moms ever. But I was like, so yeah, and I didn't understand. I'm like, come on, just buy me some tidy whities.
No, totally. And I think like you said, as kids, we don't really understand the challenges that our parents go through. And in that moment, you're just thinking like, why are they being so mean? Mm-hmm. It's hard.
It's hard because when you're living in a season of drought, as a parent especially, you're like, there's not enough during this season, there's a drought, there's not enough water.
Right.
And so maybe many moms today are experiencing like, I just don't have the resources right now. There's a drought. There's a drought because I just don't have enough money. Mm-hmm. Back to school shopping, it's like it's not, school's not even done. You're like, I can't even begin to even think about that, or even think about like trying to do something special this summer, or even pay for the activities that my kid wants to be in, or maybe I'm living in a drought in relationships. When you're living in a season of lacking, there just tends to be so much strain.
Yeah. And in verse 12 it says, but she said, I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house. I have only a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die. So this widow wasn't a believer. Most believe she was a Gentile. She spoke of Jehovah as the Lord your God. This widow literally had little oil in a flask, a handful of barley in a large grain jar, and a few sticks to provide fuel for the fire. And maybe, just from the widow's perspective, she wasn't being dramatic. She really wasn't. I mean, kids say there's nothing to eat in the house. That I hear every day. Or
there's plenty of food, just not what.
Right. Not what they want, Or me saying I have literally nothing to wear.
She says this all the time, I have nothing to wear. And then she'll try on 3 different outfits and say, which one do you like best? I'm like, you got nothing. You're being a little.
Now that's dramatic.
You're being a little dramatic, but to understand sometimes why we get this way. And she's not, but she's living literally in like a season of, she doesn't have anything.
No.
Like just a little. I remember after we met, and then you were moving out to California, helping you move, and in a storage unit, you had a box of hangers.
I did.
That she wasn't using. Living in a nice high-rise view of Lake Michigan in Chicago, working in private equity, and yet successful, and yet like you're paying for the storage unit and you have this box of hangers, and they're not just any hangers. They're the hangers that you get from the dry cleaners that they give you for free.
I had other stuff in that storage unit, but yes, I had some.
You had hundreds of hangers.
In case I needed it.
In case she needed it.
Or somebody else needed it.
Or somebody else, but you're like, okay, you get, because there was a season you went through that was like, that sometimes I'm not going to have enough.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, there was a season where every night we had pizza. We weren't going to Round Table. My mom went to the grocery store, and my mom was the coupon queen. She was always cutting out coupons, and there was one grocery store that would double the coupons back at that time when I was a kid. And after you doubled the coupon, they basically paid you for the pizza. So our freezer, it was freezer, you put it in the oven to heat it up. It's like, she would keep buying them using this coupon because she's like, before this goes out, we had pizza every single, I'm like, Mom, I like pizza, but just not every single night. I didn't realize, sometimes you don't realize, things are tight right now. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to survive, and you don't want to put that pressure on your kid, but sometimes you're like, you're just trying to make it work.
Yes, absolutely. And looking at the story, I think this is also so interesting that the widow's name is never mentioned in the Bible. But God knew her name. He knew her situation. He knows your name, and he knows everything that you're going through. God knows us better than we know ourselves. God knows every intricate part of our life. And God selected this widow, who wasn't a believer, to provide help to Elijah. So God can use anyone at any time. Doesn't matter how much money you make, your level of education, your background, or your experience. God can use you.
It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's not because of what she had. Mm-hmm. It's just our willingness.
That's right. And then it says, but Elijah said to her, don't be afraid.
That's to someone right now. Right? Do not be afraid.
Do not be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you've said. But make me a little bread first.
Do your thing. But first.
Then use what's left to prepare a meal for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There will always be flour and olive oil left in your container until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again.
You see, some of us maybe are living with a mindset of, me first. Mm-hmm. Okay, God, let me take care of my needs, and then I'll take care of what you're asking. Mm-hmm. But this is about saying, no, we're going to put God's request first.
Yeah.
Not what we think we need. Mm-hmm. Listen, the tithe is so important to not just give 10%, but to say, God, we are giving you our first 10%. Mm-hmm. When we're serving and we're living open-handed and we're serving, whether it be on campus at church or whether it be in our community, we shouldn't give the last of our time when we're worn out and exhausted. We should give God and some people some of the best of our time.
Yep. And I think, how often is God asking us to do something before we receive the blessing?
Before?
Not after, right? And I love this because Elijah says, don't be afraid. Verse 15 says, so she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many, many days. There was always enough flour and olive oil left in the containers, just as the Lord had promised through Elijah. I just think this is so amazing how she trusted Elijah with what he had asked of her. Because really, he was a stranger. She didn't know him, but she gave her last bit of food to him. And the food never ran out, and they never went to bed hungry. And because of Elijah's trust and obedience to God, not only was he taken care of, but the widow and her son were also taken care of.
I love that.
And how often are people in your life impacted because of you being, obedient and trusting in God?
Where God's not just going to take care of you, he's going to help take care of others through your obedience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Verse 17 then says, sometime later, the woman's son became sick. He grew worse, and he finally died. Then she said to Elijah, "O man of God, what have you done to me? Have you come here to point out my sins and kill my son?" So that's kind of hard to believe that God would miraculously provide food for the three of them and then allow her son to die. So on one hand, there's the miracle of the food never running out. And then on the other hand, her son dies. That just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It kind of feels sometimes like life doesn't make sense. Maybe you get a promotion at work and at the same time your spouse leaves you. Or you just get a brand new home and then all of a sudden you get a bad health report. It just doesn't make sense.
Sometimes it seems like we're living in the middle of a miracle and misery at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, this is the greatest thing over here, but this is the worst thing over there. It's like it was the best of times and it was the worst of times.
Right? And maybe this widow felt like this was a way of God punishing her. Or maybe she felt guilty because of her past. As a mother, I look back, and because of some of my choices that I've made, I will overcompensate for things that have happened or maybe what's missing. Or
like you can be really dramatic on that. Like you can be like moments where you are just breaking down in tears saying God should have never made me a mother. I'm the worst mother in the world. There's never been a mother on the ever. Like you're like being overly dramatic.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's something just called having a teenager.
Yeah.
Like, that's like you are a
feel
great
like
mother.
I'm the worst mother ever. And then there are those little reminders of those little wins and moments. For instance, just recently our youngest had open house at our middle school. And I love going to open house because you get to go to all the classrooms, especially middle school.
And you don't just go to her classroom, her friends' classrooms. They love, like, you are like the mom to so many.
I go to the different classrooms. I look at her projects. I meet all the teachers. I probably have more fun at it than she does.
Probably, for sure.
So the next day, in her history class, she receives some candy from her teacher, and he's like, "Hey, you won." And she's like, "I won." And he's like, "Because you had the best mom at open house."
She got the best mom at open house.
And I looked at her and I said, "You're welcome." You know,
she was not excited. She was excited. She was like, she felt like she won an Academy Award.
I did. It was like awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny. So, verse 19 says, "But Elijah replied, 'Give me your son.' And he took the child's body from her arms." That must have been hard. I can't even imagine. "He carried him up the stairs to the room where he was staying and laid the body on his bed. Then Elijah cried out to the Lord, 'O Lord my God, why have you brought tragedy to this widow who has opened up her home to me, causing her son to die?'" When it seems like God is absent, He's very much present. He hears our prayers, He knows our thoughts, and He knows our heart's desires. And he stretched himself out over the child 3 times and cried out to the Lord, "O Lord my God, please let this child's life return to him." The Lord heard Elijah's prayer, and the life of the child returned, and he revived. Then Elijah brought him down from the upper room and gave him to his mother. He said, "Look, your son is alive." Then the woman told Elijah, "I now know for sure that you are a man of God, and that the Lord truly speaks through you." Wow. That is
powerful.
So powerful. The result of this miracle was the widow's confession of her faith in God. I mean, she was faithful with the small things, providing food and water to Elijah.
And which wasn't so small. It might seem small, but it was massive.
It was massive. You're
and
right.
God was faithful with the bigger things.
Exactly. So this widow's story was not over. God had so much in store for her, her life, and her son. And I think like maybe as we're going through difficult times in our lives, God is there to show us that He is so much bigger than any problem, any struggle, any battle or issue that we are experiencing in our life.
So we just want you to know today that your story is not over. Mm-hmm. Whether you have a 2-year-old and you're just trying to keep this little 2-year-old baby alive, you're just like, I'm exhausted. Your story is not over. Whether you maybe have a teenager right now and you're just like, oh my goodness, I don't even know. Like your story is not over. Whether you desire to be a mom someday and are just having challenges, getting pregnant, your story is not over. Whatever season, whatever challenge, we want you to know with God, it is never over. And for this widow, she discovered not just what God does, but who God is.